Hello everyone, my name is Jackie Shepherd. I am from the Dugalug clan group of Far North Queensland. I am recording this video on the lands of the Wurundjeri and Woiwurrung people of the Eastern Kulin Nations. For those of you who might not know, that was just an acknowledgement of country, which is something that First Nations people do before opening up for spaces. It's also a practice that we do daily in our personal lives, a way to acknowledge and honour the land and the First Nations custodians of the land. So I decided to do this reading, this New Year's Eve reading, as an exciting way to bring closure to 2024, the complexities of this year, but also I suppose, we've been seeing a lot. We've been seeing really the volcano erupting, haven't we? We've been seeing, I just want to make sure you can see my head properly. We've been seeing the volcano erupting, and we've been seeing the guts of the shadow of the earth rising in so many different ways. And let's face it, a lot of this has been around sexuality, sexual domination. Sex is as Janelle Monáe put it in one of her songs, everything is sex. As I'm paraphrasing here, everything is sex. Sex is power. And I wasn't planning for that. That's just been coming through already, so I wasn't planning to really begin with that. But it is true. It is the theme that we've been exploring a lot in the past decade, but it has really, really been rising to the surface this year, in the past few years, but particularly this year. It is really, really popping like a pimple. Sorry to for those of you who are getting grossed out by that image, but it really has been. And but on the other side of that, some of you may have been feeling quite confused or conflicted in this in these past 12 months. The reason being is because duality is really, really becoming more clear now. And a lot of us thought, maybe a little while ago, a couple of decades ago, or a decade ago, that when it comes to duality, I'm going to be on this side, they're going to be on that side. But we're realizing that the duality exists in our embodiment within us. And in that, there are these conflicting kind of discourses and inner monologues that are going on. Yes, around who am I and what is my purpose, and what role have I been playing, and what role do I have to play. But also beyond that is just this kind of, I don't know if it's this discombobulated feeling or this disoriented feeling that I am. How does one manage with the idea of I am when you look outside the window and you look out the world to all that is? And it is all that is because it's happening. It is all that is because this is what's happening right now. It's playing out. It's playing out in our consciousness. We are perceiving it. And so it is this question of, how do I navigate the I am and the understanding that I am all that is. Furthermore, with this is this comprehension, or this really, I'm going back to this feeling of feeling discombobulated. That how can something simultaneously be growing in beauty and healing and in a kind of regenerative sense, while simultaneously be experiencing this gurgling up of destruction? And I'm seeing and I'm getting like this frothing sensation, you know? It's this frothing up of that snarling voice, you know? The snarling voice that has been laying deep within our collective psyche. And so I suppose that's what we're going to be exploring in this reading. I feel as though a lot of my readings my collective readings, have been quite, in a way, I don't know if they've been repetitious, but the same themes have been resurfacing in different ways. So I'm going to follow that, and I'm not going to, I think that's not a bad thing, because we're moving through complex and complicated times, and we're unfolding. And so what we're going to do, and I think that this is actually happening in a lot of spaces where there are channeled collective readings. Where there are channeled collective readings and the same themes are resurfacing, because what we have to do is we have to unfold. So we're unlayering the complexities of the same themes, of the same ideas. In previous readings, I spoke about, you know, the inner monster. I spoke about shadow work, and shadow work will continue to come up, but it's also, but there are different aspects and elements of that. Sexuality just, you know, was one of the first things to enter into this reading. And so that's another part of the unfoldment. And what I'm seeing now is I'm seeing the body. I'm seeing the collective body, but also the individual body. And I work in embodiment and somatics. I also have a dance and embodiment practice. And so this aspect of healing really interests me. But what I'm seeing is I'm seeing this body, and the skin is unfolding. This is going to be very visceral, but hey, we've all got bodies with its anatomy. The skin is unfolding, then the sinews, the flesh, all of it, the muscles, the fascia, the muscle tissues are all unfolding, and in them are all of our stories, but they're stories that we didn't know were even there. They're aspects of ourselves that we had no idea were there, and this can be quite shocking. It can be shocking when we find something within our body that we had no idea was there. But it is important to start to recognize and get real with the fact that our bodies, in a way, are portals. And so, and on a very, very basic, you know, when we're talking about the science of somatics, that we are sponges. Our bodies are sponges, and our psyche is connected to our body, and they have an interrelated relationship. There's highways of information running between our psyche, our mind, and our body, and then also our spiritual bodies as well. And so, with that, we're having this, we're internalizing and sponging from birth, but before birth, like being in the womb, and our ancestries. We've sponged all of that into our cellular memory, but we've also sponged in what we've witnessed on the outside world. And this is a somatic principle. It's also understood within, a kind of more of a metaphysical understanding as well. So when you think about how we exist that way, we are the embodiment of our external world. The light, the good, the bad, the ugly. We are that embodiment. And as time moves forward, although time really is doing strange things at the moment, as time moves forward, or as it accelerates, and we really are experiencing an acceleration of a social order that is decaying or dilapidating. We're seeing an acceleration of a new social order. As we see that, our body is just going to start unfolding all of these stories, and we're going to start releasing. We're going to start releasing, and we're going to start a process of spiritual and emotional and mental maturation. And this is the site here. This is the sacred site of healing. It's a sacred site of transformation. It is the psychic site of transformation. And so, as I see this unfoldment, it's like, the body becomes a flower. It's like the flower that opens up. And I'm actually seeing, funnily enough, I'm seeing this happen around the sacral and the base chakra, which is around the belly, the lower belly, the navel area, leading into the pelvic floor, the sexual organs, the pubic bone, all of that area, the sacral, the back body as well, the anus, all of that area. We're talking about what we're releasing, what we're embodying, what we're creating. And so it's no surprise that the kind of idea of sexuality came through, because we're working in that area now, and that area is connected to land. It's connected to our the next part. The hips are the stabilizer. Talking anatomically, the hips are the stabilizer. They stabilize the body. Where our legs, think about how our legs move. Our legs are like, the messages come from here, but there's also, because the body is inexplicably connected to here, it's coming from an embodied, innate, action practice, to walk, to stand, to ground. But the powerhouse, it does exist around the pelvis, around the stabilizers, and how we walk actually is initiated from our core. It's initiated from our core. And so this area here and the hips, they are the storylines that need traveling, need reworking. In First Nations culture, we have a thing called storylines or songlines that connect our clan groups and family groups across this nation of so-called Australia together. And we used to sing those songlines and storylines to navigate. And there were so many, I could go on about that for ages. But we also have those highways and those song lines traveling through our body. Now, the question is, I'm posing to you, if you were to look at your body as a landscape that has highways that the ancestors walked through, like they did on this land, or like they did on, wherever your lineages come from, how they occupied and traveled and connected. Which of those highways have become overgrown, overshadowed? Which of those highways have not been getting the land care and land management that they need in order for that song to become clear within? Now, I'm talking about the inner song here, but I'm talking about the song that also, it connects us to our inner voice, but it also connects us to a web of, I'm seeing like this web coming from here and in here, and it's like a spider's web that interconnects us throughout the world, throughout the community, throughout the cosmos. But those webs are like song lines. So I'm seeing them like echo, like a web that echoes. But there are song lines that start here. And if those song lines have been mismanaged or overgrown or abused, they need healing. They need to, it's like when you see an area of bushland that has become overgrown, mismanaged, and it looks stagnant, sticky, it looks horrible, it's hard to look at, and it needs to be cleaned up. But the issue is, if you clean it up using a practice that destroyed it in the first place, it's just going to happen again. If you don't know the land, how do you know how to look after it? So it's about developing an intimate awareness with the body. An intimate awareness with the body. And how do you do that? You soul search. You spend time with the body. I'm seeing like, you can do this through writing, through journaling, embodied writing, psychic somatic writing. Really, everyone's got psychic abilities. Really, all you have to do is use your imagination and write where the stories feel hidden in the body, or where your body is calling out to you. It could be through injuries, it could be through physical sensations. All of us experience our bodies in different ways. And we can experience it through seeing color. Sometimes when I observe areas of my body, I see different shapes, textures, and colors, images, even memories, sounds. A lot of people, if those of you who know about, it's similar to synesthesia, which is this this neurodivergent, I actually call it a psychic. It's a psychic or a form of spiritual awareness, where when people hear certain songs, they actually have images or textures or certain different visual qualities that come along with them. I have that, but I actually believe that synesthesia, it's an amazing word, it's hard to say sometimes, is actually a the body and the imagination and the psychic awareness actually visualizing an embodied psychic interpretation of what that sound resonance is. So when you think about that with the body, what are those resonances? Through sound, through color, texture, shapes. And some of those shapes or qualities might be a little bit scary. Some of those sensations, you might get little jolts or discomforts in the body. You might even get the body fighting, saying, nah, don't come near here, I'll fight ya, you ain't coming near here. But you remember that your body is your body. Your body is your body, and you have the right to soul search within your body. And know that your body is a safe place. It's a sacred place. Know that the wounds within your body, you can glean wisdom from them. They are sacred sites. They can be very scary, but they are sacred. And I can promise you that they're nowhere near as scary as what the body is making them out to be, because the body is trying to protect itself. It's trying to preserve itself. But in doing so, it is blocking you from having access to yourself. Remembering that the body is it's a portal to your own inner world, okay? Now, those song lines, when we're seeing those I'm seeing song lines running through the body. When we manage our song lines, when we manage our embodied landscape, when we clear the way, clear the pathways, when we cleanse our land, when we heal it, when we make it regenerative again, what we do is we create clarity and we remember the songs again. We remember our inner songs, okay? We remember our inner resonance and our truth and who we really are. It takes a little bit of exploration, and it takes learning to know the land, learning to know your body and who you are. You can do this through creative explorations, creative exercises. There are lots of different body-centered practices these days. But I encourage you to trust your own instincts and to explore what your intuition and your instincts are telling you about your body. Because you can have a yoga practice, you can have Pilates, you can have a somatic practice, but I can promise you that nothing ever beats your own self-knowledge. You are the true knower of yourself. You are the true knower of what you need. And you only begin to discover what that is by attempting to know. I'm seeing, I just got the image of just taking a pen to paper. You don't even know what you have to write yet. Just start to write. A stream of consciousness, thoughts, what you see, your relationship with your body. All of those different types of things that will begin to glean an inner depth of awareness, and you will become a master of yourself. You'll become a master of yourself and who you are. And once you start to practice that mastery, I am telling you, things will change in your life. Think for the good, You will, it is likely that you will discover the ability and the capacity to hold more, with more wisdom, with more maturity. I just got the message that our ancestors, when they walked this land. Now, when you think about the society we're in now, this is it's the same train of thought, doing a little bit of a tangent and cycle back around. But if you think about our ancestors compared to society now, the difference between co-creating our existence and our reality versus having someone create it for us or influence. You know, there's this experience that we're having everything done for us, you know, which can be disempowering. Everything done for us in a way that is not supportive, you know. I'm not talking about being abandoned by social structure and social order. That happens a lot. I'm talking about having a system established and imposed that, you know, that top-down system that that imposes rules, laws, and regulations that are a little bit, they kind of treat you like a child, you know. If you think about, I don't know how long ago before we needed traffic lights and things like that, but and I'm not sure if this is the best example, but you know, if we at some point we would have relied on our own common sense to be able to cross the road, you know. At some point we would have been able to be self-reliant in keeping ourselves alive, but also understanding that even before development, even well before the industrial period, when we were like living more in connection to the land, death happens. It's a natural part of life. And so this mollycoddling or babying in order to avoid death or avoid, you know, injuries or negative things that can happen. I'm not saying that we have to be careless now. What I'm saying is that there, like, this mollycoddling has kind of introduced this new way of being where we're not self-reliant and relying on ourselves to keep ourselves alive. And there's a whole, like, consciousness of with survival. And I'm not talking about survival through the struggle against injustice here. That exists as another another truth. But I'm talking about land-based survival. I'm talking about community networks of actually thriving, but also surviving through thriving, not surviving through struggle, surviving through community mindedness, through community practice and knowledge creation and co-creation, where we get to look at our outer landscape, look at what's happening with the climate, look at what's happening with the changes, and then create the shifts, have the yarning circles, the discussions, the community discussions that create the shifts that are conducive for us to continue to thrive. That's the flexibility. And when I'm now circling back to the way the ancestors, how they used to live on the land, think about how strong and how confident and empowered our ancestors would have been to be completely knowledgeable and self-reliant about how to survive by themselves in the world. Think of that strength. Think of that power and that knowledge. Think about how you would need to be so in tune and intimately connected with the land so you could work harmoniously with the land in order to thrive and survive. Think about, just imagine what kind of warriorship and confidence our ancestors would have had to know that they could survive on the land by themselves. They didn't need there was a social order, there was governance, but they didn't need a national government. They would have required a different way of working that is more harmonious and circular and cyclical in order for it to be sustainable. Because if you transported the system that we have now and applied it to First Nations people in so-called Australia 10,000 years ago, it would dilapidate like that. Because, well, it has dilapidated like that. It's only taken 250 years on this continent for a thriving landscape to be in the situation it is in now. But just to think about those ideas, and then think about how that can influence. I'm going to backtrack before I say that. Influence. About the social order, about the relationality, and about sustainability, not just as a scientific practice of preserving land, but sustainability with relationships. Because in order to survive, especially on a land like this, you needed to be able to participate in sustainable relationships that were going to, cultures of continuity that were going to continue the generations. So there would have needed to have been very, very specific. I'm in the First Nations community, just to let you know. There's a whole yarn, a whole conversation about this. There's a whole lexicon about this, but I don't have time now. Maybe in another video I can explain it, but I don't have time now to talk about our kinship systems and how our kinship systems were and are the most beautiful works of art, I'm going to say, and absolutely expert intelligence in relationality, in science, in ceremony and spirituality. Not the complications, the complexities, the deliberate complexities of our kinship systems to survive and thrive us, and to continue ceremonies and song lines that were deeply empowering. It's incredible. It is incredible and it is beautiful. And that ability in different expressions and in different ways, no matter where you're from, obviously if you're, because I'm not just talking about where we are in this present moment, I'm talking about our ancestral relationships as well that exist in the body, that exist in our cells. So if your connection was from another continent, then the way in which you might think about or consider your place-based connections and relationships might vary. But the point that I'm getting at is the true nature of it. The heart and land-based relationship systems and ecosystems. And at one point on this planet, we all had family systems and relationship systems that were connected into our relationship with land and spirit and ancestry. And those are the song lines or the storylines that exist within. So part of clearing the landscape, the inner landscape, is rediscovering what your story is. And that inner voice, going back to that web, that when you discover that inner voice, suddenly those webs are just there. You know, they're easier to weave. They're there to weave. You can see them. You can see the roads, the pathways, the conversations, the relationships, both in the physical world and ancestral relationships. Yeah. So this practice is really, really important, because as I cycle back around now, back to around the pelvic floor, the sexual organs, you know, a part of living in this modern social order is our lack of knowledge and education in sexuality and embodied health. It's really, really important. A part of somatics is actually, it's called mind and body connectivity, and it's understanding how your mind is in relationship to the body, your relationship and knowledge and awareness of your own body, and how your body is in relationship, your mind and body and spirit is in relationship to the world around you, how it's called positionality, how it exists in time and place, how you respond, ground, who you are in time and place within this vessel that holds, this alive vessel, this intelligent ecosystem that holds you. So, but we have really, really lacked our connection to our pelvis and to our hips, to our adductors, which are the muscles on the inner thighs that lead to the groin muscles, to our pelvic floor, you know, our pubic area. We have really, really lacked a healthy connection to that area. And what can happen is that when we're using the symbol of overgrown landscape, is that area can become overgrown, it can become overshadowed and densified. It can become densified, okay? And the less we understand and the more time we spend away from it, the more disembodied we are. So then it's harder to create that connection. Remember when I was talking about the base chakra and the sacral and how they're connected to our connection to earth? They have a relationship with our connection to earth. The pelvic stabilizers, stabilizing our legs and feet being the things that connect with earth, you know, that walk on earth, that absorb earth. It represents our relationship to the land. But if our pelvis is, you know, sexuality exists within nature. Sexuality exists within nature. It's a natural thing. It's a part of the natural order. And so, you know, like I'm seeing this body and it's unfolding like a flower towards the pelvis. And if you were to imagine that, say the head's up this way and then the body runs down here, and there's like the belly button around here, so you can see. And then you're heading towards the lower abdominals. Yeah, I'm seeing the flower start to open and open and open gently. So it's important to open this space gently and to story yourself and to restore yourself down into your pelvic floor. In a previous reading, I talked about knowing the corners of yourself like the corners of the world. You know, if the world is an outer reflection of us, then, and we're looking for corners of the world that are holding more love and justice, then get to know the corners of yourself, each and every corner. And I mentioned leave no stone unturned. Leave no stone unturned. Remember, it's your body, no one else's. Nothing is going to happen to you if you know all of who you are. The only thing that can happen to you, if you're afraid that you're going to find something that you don't like or that you're scared of, know that it can only ever be released. It can only ever be healed. It is a lie, it is a fallacy that we are locked onto the identity of our lowest or most faltered expression, or that we are only ever known as our worst mistakes or our worst traumatic experiences. Everything is actually flexible and malleable. You can release it. You can release it. And so don't be afraid. Know every corner of your body and explore and lift up the folds of that flower and start to story yourself and understand the stories that exist within you. The stories, and story then down. It's like I'm seeing writing, and as you write, the petals unfold, and it's just an ever unfolding flower, or like with petals, and it will continue to, because a part of growing and becoming more of who we are is that we just continually unfold. It never stops. And that's actually exciting, because it's actually not really about the destination, it's about the journey. And so start to story that flower, and start, as you write, the petals will unfold, but the petals will also change, because what I'm seeing dark fleshy petals that are discolored. I'm seeing like a discolored, like grayish blue. But in this, I'm not going to say it's not pretty, because I don't want to judge it, because, there can be grotesque, but you can also discover wisdom and beauty within these like areas that are harder to look at or harder to navigate. But what I'm getting psychically is that it's overshadowed and overgrown, so it's sticky denseness, But I'm seeing that as we write the petals and we write the story, we gain clarity. And as you gain clarity, you can release and you can rewrite the stories. So now I'm seeing that the petals are actually like blooming and developing color, blues, oranges, whites, like they're like light blues. And so as you write the story, the petals open. As you write in depth to the story, and as you glean the knowledge, the petals shift, and you write that toward the pelvis, and the flower will open. And this is how you can actually find a safe way to engage in sexual healing, okay? A lot of people, there are lots of different ways to heal sexually. Participating in like physical sexual practice, like having sex, or other the physical I suppose expression of sex is okay. That's good, and that can be really, really great, but it's not the only way. And the reason why I think that is very important is because there has been a little bit of an appropriation, not a little bit actually, a huge appropriation and miseducation around spiritual sexual healing. In fact, some people have used that to gain their own benefits at the expense of other people. There have been people who can use that for their own sexual gratification at the expense of others who are looking for healing. And so it's important, remember, cycling back to what I said before around like when you are the master of your own healing and your own self-knowledge and what your body needs, you can write your own sexual healing. You can discover in this space, and you can be dynamic. It doesn't have to be a sexual act as we commonly know it. It can be many different things, so riding towards the pelvis, riding towards the pelvic floor, riding towards the anus and the sexual organs, and all of the muscles, the fascia, the sinews around them that surround them, around the glutes, the bum as well, the adductors and abductors I'm not sure if I got that right. Adductors, abductors, all around there. You write in detail, but go slowly, go gently, or go at a pace that is right for you, that is safe for you. You can unlock and expand in this area. Now, when I first began this reading and I started talking about the pelvis, I felt a release around my pelvic floor. And I'm feeling it now. And even through, I'm saying this to give you an example, even through yarning this and paying some attention, some caring attention to that region, I'm feeling an expansion and an illumination of that area. Because when I was talking about before with us having, even though we live in apparently a secular kind of country here in so-called Australia, we still have adopted a lot of religious ideas, and one of them is around modesty. Modesty, and that it is polite to and right to ignore or pay no attention to the pelvic area, to our sexual organs. And that's just like, it's a part of our body. It's what we were born with. It's the most natural thing in the world. And that's why I'm talking so openly and explicitly, just openly, just straight up about it, is because we all have it, and we're all allowed to, be aware of these regions, and also be in practice. They're a part of our body. They are a part of who we are. They're also a part of our connection to land. It's a part of creation, it's how we continue our generations, but it's also how we continue our creativity. It doesn't just have to be about having babies. That's valid, but it's not the only way. It can be about what we're bringing into the world, and our relationship with what we're bringing into the world as well. If we can't see in the regions and the areas where our creative insight and our connection to land are, how do we exactly know what we're bringing into the world? What is that songline? So when you're writing to those petals and writing to that flower, think about what story are you writing, or what story are you discovering about yourself? But going back to that, that release, I could almost feel and see this expansion and this illumination. That's what I was meant to say, is that the move away from paying attention to this area means that often in our mind's eye, we cannot visualize our sexual organs or our pelvic area. We cannot visualize it with clarity. It might be clouded or overshadowed. And so this is about discovering clarity. And what you will discover, you may discover many different things. You may discover where you've been holding shame, fear, anxiety, stress. You may discover power. Even if you do discover and come across challenging narratives or experiences or memories. And remember, narratives might not just be things that happen to you, but ideas that were planted into your psyche. When adults or when the media, whoever plants an idea, especially when you're young, when you're a child, what can happen is if that idea, say for example, keeping it on track with the themes of this reading, if someone plants an idea about human sexuality or modesty, we don't know that it's happening, but somatically, on a deep unconscious somatic level, maybe a door shut, maybe something closed, and psychically we began to lose psychic and embodied access to that region of our body. Okay, so it's about reawakening, and it's also about exploring when you're writing, or you can write, you can draw, you can dance, you can really do whatever expressive form you like that is most beneficial to you or most exciting and expressive to you. But when you do that, you will start to come across those belief systems and definitions that were adopted that are out of alignment or that have been blocking your relationship with your sexuality. There's a lot of shaming that has happened, a lot of guilt. So when we write into those spaces, what's going to happen for those who might be holding shame and guilt is it will rise, okay? Now, I need to quickly talk about integration here. Integration is an important conversation when we're talking about this, because when we release and when we heal, when we are healing and when we are releasing, we are integrating what is being released into our expanded self. We are becoming whole. That is what integration is. It's a process of becoming whole again. And you integrate through healing the areas of ourselves and the parts of ourselves that have held onto traumas or ideas that are not in alignment with who we really are and that are not in alignment with the truth, that have maybe diminished us or shamed us. And so integrate. So what happens through that process is it rises. Now, as it rises, what can often happen is, because that area of the body or that area where it was released from holds the experience, that experience will be you may experience the sensation of reliving, okay? It may not be as bad. Remember, it happens over time. So for example, one petal might represent one story. And so you might write, if a petal is like that, this is the best way I can do. I'm just going to use this as an example. If this is one of the petals, you might write it from there, and you might just take your time, feel into and learn about yourself, learn about what pace is safe for you. Learn about what pace is safe for you. And you might take your time. It might take days, weeks, months, years. Be patient. You're allowed to be patient. You don't need to rush. But you write down that story at a pace that is safe for you. Now, you might start off, that is enough for now. But as you do it, you might glean a little bit more, or you might not glean, you might gain a little bit more confidence and empowerment in this space, and you might be able to move a little bit faster. You create a flow, and the more you discover, you'll realize the truth, and you'll realize just how much of a profound impact that this is happening, that you may even want to. You might be like, I'm getting this done, but still be mindful. You can be excited, you can speed along if that's a safe pace for you, but choose a pace that is safe. I would encourage that. So that's what happens. And so it can rise up and it can feel clogged and it can feel claggy. And often as we're moving through, as we're ascending, as we're healing, what can happen is we relocate into experiences that were hurtful or that were not based for our highest good. And that can give the feeling and the sensation that we've been doing all of this healing and suddenly we've moved backwards. The feeling is non-linear. And the reason why the feeling is non-linear is because we're working through different timelines of stories in our body. Okay, we're working through different timelines of stories. And so on, one point in time, you might feel like, gosh, I have just gone accelerated this far in my healing and I'm so proud of myself. And then as you continue, you might find something that happened, I don't know, in your teenage years or early 20s, and you might feel like you've just gone back 1 or 2 decades. As long as you know that, it's okay. Know that, and you know that it's rising. That is rising. Don't block that. Don't ignore it. Allow it to rise. Because if you block it, it will go back down and it will be held again. And because there's been an unlocking, there might be more resistance and more pain. So let it rise, let it go. And it may feel sticky and claggy. You might be feeling all of these complex emotions, anger, rage, shame, so on and so forth. Let yourself feel them, because it is likely that back when it didn't happen, you didn't get to, back when the experience happened, you didn't get to process it. You didn't get to actually observe the emotions and the feelings that were coming up. And so it's actually the opportunity to finish the process that was unfinished. You allow it to rise. And it may feel like you're reliving, or it may feel like, you might just feel really, really, really bad or heavy, or slow, or overburdened, overwhelmed. But know that it's temporary, and know that once you get past that, and as it rises, that you will have integrated and gained more and re-energize yourself and reclaim that embodied landscape, one story at a time, I think that the last thing that I'm going to just share is that remember that your connection to the land and your ability to ground actually helps with your ability to connect outwardly, as into this plane of existence, but also on a cosmic level as well. It's really important, and this continues to come back around in my readings. So I do encourage you, if this has resonated, to start to explore your pelvic region and your sexuality through creative interpretation and curiosity. And yes, there are things around sexuality and attraction and everything like that, but I think sexuality is far more expansive than that. That is a component of it. So I encourage you not to limit yourself to attraction. If it naturally comes through, that's fine, but think about it in a more expansive way. Think about it as a creative expression. Think about it as a part of a life force. If sex can be used to overpower and dominate, then what actually is sex but another power source? And I'm not talking about sex as something that's necessarily with another person. I'm not talking about the physical act of sex with another person. I'm talking about the consciousness and the concept of sex as an energy, as a practice, as a way of self-knowing. What is your... I would encourage you to research and explore in this space. I would encourage you to begin to comprehend sexuality, sacred sexuality, and how it is a power source, a power point. If it can be used to disempower, then it actually is a power source. And, or it can be, I'm understanding that there are also variations of us as humans in the world. And that this might not resonate for everyone, and that's okay. But for those that it does resonate with, think about that. And, you know, we've all had different experiences. So be caring with yourself, be gentle, be kind on yourself as well. But it's about reclaiming, and it's about knowing the embodied landscape. You know thyself, for those, if that rings more familiar for those, some of you who are watching. I think that's it. Yeah. And see how that power source can be like, well, you know, if you plug in a an adapter into the wall, you know, can it be a place that you plug into? Can it be generative? Can it be electromagnetic? Can it be electrifying? This is probably has something to do with our relationship to Kundalini energy. I'm not going to go into that because we're at 1 hour and 5 minutes. Although by the time I edit this, it's probably going to be about an hour or less. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm going to leave the reading there. Thank you so much for coming with me on this journey. It has once again been such a pleasure to do this collective reading. I really, really enjoy doing this, and I hope that you have gotten something out of this reading. I would like to, again, thank and acknowledge the ancestors of this land and my ancestors and the ancestors of all of you who you carry with you. And I would like to acknowledge my guides who have helped me channel this message, and acknowledge the consciousness of the land, which has also I've also been bringing up through this reading to help bring this message and bring these insights. So I would like to thank the land, Mother Earth, and our ancestors and our cosmic guides as well. And thank all of you. Biggest gratitude. Happy New Year. Much love, and may your 2025 bring you the strength and abundance and joy that you damn well deserve. Take care. Bye.